The way I do it, it does because I give New Yorkers a little bit of the history, and then I equate it to something that anyone can relate to, a breakup followed by a glow up. And so I think anyone can then understand it when I put in those terms of someone who got dumped by an ex-boyfriend. Now she's like a supermodel on the runway and just lording it over her ex-boyfriend who dumped her a long time ago.
Would you have made the same joke, that same set, if you were in Singapore or in Malaysia?
In Singapore, absolutely, minus some of the history since they already know it. In Malaysia, I might have tried a modified version of it because the essence of this joke, Fauziah, has been highly misunderstood. The essence of the joke, done in its full form in a New York City club, is actually a comedian pushing the boundaries a little bit. Like, oh, did I go too far? I go too far? Oh, okay, I went too far. That's all right. Never mind. Some jokes don't land, and then I bring them back, and that's when the audience just claps and they go wild because of the emotional journey they had been on, right? They thought that I was saying something too offensive, and then I bring them back and like, okay, we like you again. So this whole thing has gone completely out, misunderstood when you just consume it on social media. So I would have probably tried a modified version in Malaysia. Absolutely no cussing at them. Yeah. And because Malaysians tend to have a pretty good sense of humor. I've noticed when I performed there, it would have probably done okay, if not pretty well, within the context of a comedy club, because I don't think a lot of the social media commentators know this, but the comedians in Malaysia and Singapore know this. Malaysian Airlines jokes are done all the time in Singapore and Malaysia.
Yeah.
I think I'm probably just the first one. And also because the Comedy Cellar, which is one of the best clubs, if not the best club in the world, posted it. That's why I got so many more eyeballs on it than a comedian just doing it on the stages in Malaysia and Singapore. And I had so many Asian comedians message me, WTF, Jocelyn, Malaysian Airlines jokes are done all the time here. What is going on?
You know, it's interesting that you talk about that emotional journey that we go through as the audience, you know, when watching a comedic set or so. There's been a lot of discussion lately about how far you can go with comedy and whether the audience, you know, now is just way too sensitive. I want to know what your boundary is, Jocelyn, as a comedian. How far do you think is too far?
I know when my boundary is based on the audience response. So if the audience is moaning and groaning, I know that I went too far. But if they laugh, I know that I'm still within the boundary. And we can sometimes break the boundary as long as you bring them back, right? It's like a little dance that comedians do. Oh, am I pushing a little too far? Is this too far? Is this too far? Oh, too far. Okay, well, but I brought you back. Hey, hey.
Yeah.
So that is the fun of it, and where I follow the rule that you can say anything you want as long as you get them to laugh. And at the end of the day, that is our purpose. It's not to make sure I don't offend everybody in the entire world with my jokes, but to get a laugh. So if the majority of the people are laughing, then I think the boundary has been established that I'm still within it.
Just in light of this particular incident, you know, you've said that people take jokes way too seriously. Do you think the fact that audiences are far more sensitive now and, you know, we're very aware about political correctness and everything, is that ruining comedy?
Absolutely, to a certain extent, and many comedians have complained about this. So it is much more challenging being a comedian these days, especially because boundaries shift. And it can also change depending on one demographic to another, right? Like clearly the demographic of audiences I've been used to playing to, which is in New York City, I've done it even in Berlin, Los Angeles, they're all like totally down with this joke. But if I'd done it in Asia, maybe it wouldn't have done as well. I'm not sure exactly where their sensitivities lie because they are not my testing ground. So I definitely think with the increasing sensitivity, it's tough enough being a comedian in your home ground and then now having to travel around the world to different countries. Ironically, Fauziah, I've always said that in Asia, you can be less politically correct because Asians tend to be less sensitive. But maybe things have changed. I haven't performed in Asia since I think before the pandemic, before 2020, so I'm not sure. But definitely heightened sensitivity makes it tougher for comedians. And that is why a lot of comedians have gone direct to fans, which is now their fans following them, coming to their show. They know what the comedian is about. They know this particular comedian can get a little offensive, this comedian not so. So I think the name of the game now is like find the people who like you and then play to them.
That's really interesting. Jocelyn, I have to ask you this question. What does it feel like to be in the middle of a diplomatic storm and potentially be on the Interpol's most wanted list?
Well, I have had to speak to a lawyer about this, and I don't really need to worry about the Interpol aspect just because the Interpol will assess Malaysia's request based on international human rights standards, right? And this would not be conforming with international human rights standards to arrest a comedian telling a joke in her home country. I am American now, actually. And the feeling I have, it's a very mixed bag, Fauzi. I mean, on the one hand, of course, the hatred is very uncomfortable. And I really need to focus on protecting my mental and emotional health in the face of so much hatred and condemnation. On the other hand, I am lucky in the sense that I'm in a profession where so many of my colleagues have had to face similar backlash, probably not to the extent of being wanted by the police, but they have had similar backlash. So I've gotten enough guidance from my friends and my colleagues to know how to navigate this more or less. I mean, it's still pretty new, right? No one has been like in danger of getting arrested by a country's police. And then the third part is the silver lining. It has been a boost to my profile, a boost to my career. Lots of new fans have been now following me because of this incident. So I would say it's a real mixed bag. There is good and there is bad, but my comic friends who have had similar backlash and cancellation attempts do say in the long run, this actually boosts your career because now your true fans will be the ones who are really following you, and that's who you can then cater to going forward.